What sense do you get for how much of the audience is outside of Africa?
So on WhatsApp, we get dialing codes, which can tell us this, and our surveys confirm it, where 1/3 of people are overseas. And that's mostly Canada, the United States, Germany, France, England, but then 2/3 are on the continent.
And do you think that that's kind of like a diaspora of Africa, or is it somebody
So
else?
it's a mix of diaspora because again, readers talk a lot about a sense of belonging, because there's very few African institutions that you can emotionally connect to. So the content is giving that. But then a lot of people who work at organizations where they need to know what's happening on Africa because they invest there or they have an aid organization.
Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. When Sipo Kings and his co-founder Simon Allison launched The Continent in 2020, they wanted to rethink how journalism is distributed online. Instead of chasing search traffic and social algorithms, they created a weekly PDF newsletter designed specifically for smartphones and distributed it through platforms like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and email. The idea was to bring back the simplicity of a curated newspaper while adapting it to how people actually consume information today. 6 years later, The Continent reached tens of thousands of readers across Africa and around the world. In a recent interview, Kings explained how the publication grew entirely through word of mouth, why its unusual PDF format created a deeper relationship with readers, and how it's building a sustainable media business outside the traditional web ecosystem. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, gently tap on that subscribe button so you can watch more interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey Sipo, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So super excited to have you on. You are the editor and I think founder of a publication that seems to be distributed mainly as a PDF, but goes beyond the inbox and is distributed across lots of different apps like WhatsApp and Signal. So really excited to jump into that. But first, I just wanted to get a little bit of understanding of who you are and what your background was prior to launching this publication. Do you have like a deep background in journalism originally?
So my background is in climate and environment reporting. I was a hardcore journalist who was in love with 2,000-word features and double-page spreads. But I also started my journalism career in 2011, which is the perfect time for the collapse of media. So my whole career has been the collapse of media. And 10 years in, I started thinking about how do we do journalism better, and moving into management at the place I worked. And then eventually, with my co-founder and our team, creating The Continent, creating a new place.
So what kind of so you're based in South Africa, right? Or did you grow up there?
Yes. Yes, so I grew up in Botswana, but then my work life was in South Africa, in Johannesburg.
And you said that you started out in like climate journalism. Was it like, were you like a freelancer? Like what kind of stuff were you doing?
So I was very lucky. I started as an intern at the most respected newspaper in South Africa, which was a weekly newspaper, and it was going digital, which meant I had a full-time job doing climate, environment, social justice, that kind of reporting.
So you said that what's the name of the publication that you now run? It's called The Continent, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
The Continent.
So you were kind of working in climate journalism. You said that like the industry was kind of collapsing around you. When did you start getting kind of the genesis of the idea for what this publication could become?
So we launched The Continent in April 2020, which is when COVID really hit, right? And the media industry, as we all know, was collapsing, or had an accelerated collapse because we were already in free fall thanks to that. But along with my co-founder, who's also called Simon, we've been talking for months about just journalism isn't working, websites and the whole model of distributing journalism through links and trying to game the Facebook system and everything else is horrible. No one enjoys it. Our readers don't enjoy it. And journalism, it's no longer interesting or fun. So we're trying to work out what then is the next platform. What's the next way to do it? And because we worked out a weekly print newspaper, like this format is fantastic. Newspapers are really good at finite curated storytelling. How do we do that digitally? So that's when we had so much coffee Like we would, after work, we'd go sit down, drink coffee, talk about journalism, drink coffee, talk about journalism. And that led to this. When the crisis of COVID happened, we're like, let's go for it. Let's make a new publication. We saw what other people were doing. We realized that, especially in Africa, where people are getting their information is WhatsApp, and there aren't journalism products built for WhatsApp, especially back in 2020. So we created a PDF, we put it into WhatsApp, and it's been 6 years since then.
So let's talk about like what the actual idea for the publication was in terms of its coverage. So like it doesn't just cover South Africa, it's actually trying to cover the entire continent. Why would like that's a lot to bite off when you're just two guys like drinking in a coffee shop. Why did you decide to go with that level of ambition?
So Simon was the Africa editor at the newspaper we worked, so he did a lot of reporting on there. But bigger picture, so many of Africa's stories are told by outsiders, right? And especially publications. Like there are no newspapers that cover Africa that are based in Africa. They're all based in France or the UK or China or the United States. So we were responding to that. Right? We need to have the ambition to create an African product that is for Africans and is read by Africans and does stories about us. And just does journalism, like news for the sake of news. That's why we decided to be that ambitious. It is a quarter of the world, right? It was a wildly ambitious thing, but that was COVID, right? The world was collapsing. Anything felt possible.
And when you say there are only publications that cover Africa in like France and outside countries, you mean like the entire continent, not like obviously a lot of like individual countries probably have their own newspapers and stuff. You're talking about like as an entire continent.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the one thing with COVID, because there were so many closures and retrenchments at newsrooms, even the national newspapers were getting rid of people who might cover the region or the continent. So even like internally, people weren't covering Africa.
So it's you and this guy Simon. So what do? Do you quit your job? Like what's kind of the next steps to like get this up and running?
So we started doing it in our spare time. Like we got friends. The designer who made this beautiful PDF works in magazines, it has quite a strong magazine feel about it, even if it's a weekly newspaper. And we just kept doing it in our spare time, invested very basic amounts of money, like buying a cell phone that we could distribute on WhatsApp. And then we started getting funding, and then we built it from there. We eventually created our own nonprofit and scaled.
So walk me through the early. So you like the idea is that it's like you're trying to create like a product of scarcity that can be read in kind of like one unit. You're not distributing like like you're not publishing individual articles to their own pages that can then be distributed over social media. The idea is you can put this PDF on an app like WhatsApp, like obviously in different parts of Africa where there are huge portions of the population, and correct me if anything I say is wrong, but huge portions of the population don't necessarily have desktop computers, but they do have smartphones, and a lot of their communication is happening on places like WhatsApp. The idea is it's actually more efficient to distribute a publication as an entire unit as a PDF so that they could be read natively in these apps versus forcing them to like click through to article pages and stuff like that.
Yes, and what's nice about that is you can then create what it looks like. Right? You can decide how the storytelling works instead of you need to do it to game an algorithm. Right? Your headlines need to be SEO friendly, all of that kind of stuff. Like this, you can have a professional newsroom having storytelling priorities and signaling that to readers. Having a single product means it's platform agnostic, which, as much as WhatsApp is, essentially everyone with a smartphone in Africa has WhatsApp, it's Meta, and Meta is hostile to journalism. So you can move it. We distribute on Signal and Telegram and email. So you can quickly move it between people. And in a world now where all countries are sort of going into silos and creating their own versions of the internet and firewalls, it means you can get it inside those, and then people can distribute on whatever the platform is there.
And walk me through how distribution works on these apps. Like I know that like WhatsApp has built out some mechanisms for you to run almost like mass distribution pages that people can subscribe to. But is that kind of what it is? Is you built out the continent like accounts on WhatsApp, on Signal, on Telegram, and all these places? Or is it that this is really kind of more one-to-one, hand-to-hand spreading of the content where people are forwarding it? Or like, how is most of the distribution happening on these apps? Explain it to, I think a lot of my audience doesn't really understand how media can really spread on these apps.
Right. And this goes back to the power of the single product. When we started, we took the first edition, the PDF, and sent it to a couple of dozen people. We're like, here's a new thing. And our sole ask of people was, if you like it, share it. We're about to get to 37,000 free subscribers who are getting it every single week. And every single one of those people got it because someone shared it to them. Right? So it's an entirely organic network, which is really powerful and resilient. And that's across the 4 platforms we work on. In the very beginning, we only did WhatsApp, and it was one-to-one chats. So I have your number, I send you the newspaper, you ask for it, and it was very manual. Like literally copy paste each edition to people. Once we hit.
So if there were 300 people signed up, you had to like send it individually to 300 people.
So we have 1,000 people on Signal, and that's what we're still doing. Because Signal it's very encrypted architecture. We never wanted to do a broadcast group because you want to keep. It can be dangerous in some places to be seen to be reading a newspaper. So you want to be able to have one-on-one conversations. On WhatsApp, when we got to 8,000 subscribers, WhatsApp started treating us as spam, and because we were in a basic account. So then we had to upgrade and do a business account, and then you build a API that runs on top of it that can send out. It's still one-to-one, but it's automating the distribution.
Wow. So it is like it's plugging into the API, and it has like a list of phone numbers, and it's like just like rapidly sending it out to all those people.
Yeah. There's throttling limits, like 300 people per 10 minutes, or there's all sorts of rules you've got to comply with that change. So it's not an easy solution. It's not a benign space.
And did you ever roll out like a way for people to sign up to like have it forwarded to their email address or something so that you could get some like mass distribution in there?
Yeah, so we've got 4,000 email subscribers, and that's one platform we haven't done enough work on or really made like a beautiful email product. We just email you the newspaper.
So let's say I receive it on WhatsApp. How do I, like someone forwards it to me, how do I sign up to be on that distribution list?
So normally you would get a link, or sometimes we have a QR code, and it will auto-populate a WhatsApp message to us that just says subscribe. And as soon as that happens, you go on the list, and then every Friday, Saturday, you get a newspaper.
Okay, so they have to kind of very manually like go through those steps to subscribe. It's not just like a quick a click of the button and then they're subscribed. They actually have to like have a little bit of technical know-how and jump through at least one hurdle to get onto the list.
Which is important for consent, right? And for data protection, all the things.
Yeah, but it probably ensures that those people who get on it like very much want to get on it. Like sometimes I get people who sign up for my newsletter who maybe they clicked something within Substack to subscribe, barely even realizing they were doing it, and then I get these angry emails like, "Oh, I never signed up for this newsletter," even though I didn't sign. I don't. Everybody who receives my newsletter is opted into it. I don't add anybody without their permission, and yet they don't really realize that they subscribed, and maybe someone might also. If they're on some newsletter sign up form, click yes to sign up or something like that, and forget about it. Versus these people have to kind of like they have to go through an extra step, so they're like double opting in some ways.
Yeah, and usually they'll have read a newspaper, right? So they'll have experienced the full product, and they want more of it. Like they're looking for it, which is really important for then people who are engaged.
So you and Simon, you're having coffee, you decide to start this publication while you both had, full-time jobs. So what did that look like in the early days? Like, how were you covering things? Was it both of you, like, writing all the content? Were you getting volunteers? Were you paying freelancers? What did those early days look like?
To cover very ambitiously an entire continent, we went with freelancers because that's the only way we can make sure if a story is about a place, someone in that place did the journalism. So that part was freelancers when you commissioning people, and then the hard work is doing the editing. So that was like evenings and all the extra time in our lives was editing stories down because the other so PDF newspapers get a bad rep because most of the ones you see are just the print version as a PDF, right? And you've got to scroll in and they're not user friendly. Whereas ours is built solely for smartphones. So on one page is 270 words, which means stories are quite short, right? And you can do a lot of really good storytelling in short spaces. The internet is
You're not having to zoom in like super far just to read it. And
so you can
like
read it on one screen. It's 2 columns. So that's the hard work, and that's what sort of kept us working until 2 a.m. on Friday nights before we sent it out.
Yeah, you're editing. You're doing like back when I was a print newspaper reporter, like they would literally edit for column inches because they needed to like save space. You're kind of doing something similar. So you're hiring some freelancers, and what was kind of were there any kind of early breakthrough moments where suddenly you saw rushes of signups, or was it just like kind of slowly acquiring new subscribers over a very small linear growth graph?
So it was the first 2 years were that it was linear. I think in 2 years we got to 10,000 because our whole thing was we don't want to pay to put adverts in places. We don't want to compete on the social internet. We want purely word of mouth, which makes it slower. And that gave us time to test how WhatsApp works and that whole infrastructure and just be cautious.
Yeah, and then was there like some kind of blow up moment after that, or did it continue to just be linear?
So the literal blow up moment was when WhatsApp treated us as spam 2 years in, and then suddenly people started not getting the newspaper because WhatsApp would vanish your messages to make you pay. But then 4 years in, we were at 25,000 subscribers, and we did our first very conscious experiment of nudging people. And we asked our audience, please find us 1 or 2 more subscribers. Like think of someone and we made an active ask. And we added 5,000 subscribers in 3 months through that. And that's increased our baseline. And it's taught us about how we can nudge people to help us grow the audience.
And so walk me through the kind of evolution from just you two doing it at your free time and you quitting your job. So like you mentioned that you got some funding. What was that? Like did you go after large funders, small funders? Like what allowed you to make that next big step?
We got enough funding to have 2 full-time employees. So that was Simon and then a production editor, copy editor, all of the things in one. And that held for a year where we could have a small core team. And then in year 2, that funding increased and we got another funder and we could have 5 people. And that's when we sort of then took off because I was able to quit my job as well and go full time. Then we started that sort of the really hard work of fundraising, building that, compliance, monitoring and evaluation, donor reporting. So that was 2 years in. And then in our 3rd year, we realized this was working and that there was a business here that we could build long term, that readers wanted it, they were interested, they were engaged, the model worked. So that's when we started thinking, what does this look like in 10 years' time? How do we make it last much longer?
So but like when you say a funder, what does that mean? Like especially those initial few funders, was it like a rich person? Was it like a grant? Like who are these people?
So the first big funder was the National Endowment for Democracy, which is based in the US. Then there was OSF and essentially institutional funders. Like that's what they do. That's what they do for a living. So not rich people, not single funders. And we run a donation link for readers to donate, but we haven't pushed that hard because for us, the bigger ask for readers is to share it, to build a network.
So it's a lot of outside the continent type of funders who are trying to enrich the information ecosystem because they think it'll lead to better outcomes in terms of democracy and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And what's going back to the value of a single product, because so many of those funders have Africa offices, they they have come to us because the people who work there get the content, really enjoy it, and want to support it. So it's again that thing of make a beautiful, engaging thing, give it to people, and then come back to you.
What's your strategy for going after funders, considering that it's usually small, like singular funding sources rather than lots of small donors and stuff like that? Like, did you make a concerted effort to fly to the States and pitch these people? Were you sending them decks? Were you applying for grants? Like, how did that work?
So that is the most important one is getting people like that to read the newspaper because it's very different from most how most news outlets work, and because our numbers, most people are addicted to website numbers, which are I have 1 million views or all that stuff, which isn't really indicative of readers. So our numbers are much less attractive, let's say, right? Because 36,000 subscribers. The value is having the person read it, understand it, get emotionally attracted to it, and then they come to us. And then the old school thing of just being in many places, talking to people, networking, and finding money to fly.
So what does the staff look like today? Like, what are your news gathering operations? Like, is it like you have freelancers or stringers in all these different countries, or do you have like full time staff members who are covering? Like, what's your content production look like today?
The organization, the nonprofit, is 8 full-time people, 7 part-time people. Two of those are admin people. Everyone else works in the newspaper. Our entire team is remote, so we don't have an office. And that's one of the benefits of COVID, right? Because before COVID, we didn't think that could happen. We're based in 7 countries. Then the freelance network is, we've worked with 500 different freelancers in our 6 years. So we have something happens in a country, we know a person in that country now who can work with us.
Yeah. And then, so how do you think about, obviously you only have like 30 pages to work with. There's a lot of news happening in the continent. How do you prioritize your coverage? Like, are you trying to get scoops? Are you trying to do kind of like features coverage, like almost like a magazine? Like, where do you see kind of your content edge in terms of like, because like you said, there's a scarcity thing to it that you only have so many pages that you're publishing on a weekly basis. How are you prioritizing what kind of like, where do people get the most value?
This is our biggest headache, is saying no to things and being okay that we haven't covered everything. So one way we get around it is the first 4 pages of the newspaper are briefs. So they're 60-word stories, just so we can give you a snapshot of the whole continent. Then we do 1 pages, which are hard news. Like, this is the thing that's happening today, yesterday. Then the rest of the newspaper is like the themes behind that. So zooming out, what are the themes across countries? What's the big issue this week? So like this week, the French president was in Kenya. So our cover is a cartoon inspired by Tintin of the French president in Kenya. And that's a like connect the dots storytelling, zooming out. So that's how we do it. It's a mix of very short stories that catch you up, and then longer stories. And by long, I say 900 words, which for us, the idea is you read it, it's really interesting. You then go tell someone else about it. Like someone in the real world, you're going to have a conversation with them.
Seems kind of modeled off The Economist. Do you use that as kind of like a comp for what you're doing?
So the Economist, Financial Times, those kind of publications, definitely they have many problems, but they have a very good model for covering the world. And we consciously thought about that. Like, For us, long term, if that's the comparison we want to be when people talk about the continent.
Yeah, because like if you think about The Economist, like it doesn't really do like blockbuster reporting. Like the reason you subscribe to The Economist is like you have a single news digest where you have like you said the news briefs, but then you have like some slightly larger pieces that are probably like not more than 1,000 words that will allow you to kind of go deep on some issues. And then when you finish that issue of The Economist, you're like, okay, you're guilt free. You feel like you've paid attention to this, like what's going on outside of like whatever your core interests are. You feel like you're up to date. It makes you feel more intelligent. Like, is that the kind of vibe that you're going for?
Yes, so the idea is if you don't read anything else and you read this once a week, you're up to speed. Right? You can have conversations with other people. And like that feeling you were just describing, do you remember that feeling where the news wasn't here all the time bombarding you and it's in your phone and it's like every you just like no wonder people are turning off from the news. So we're very consciously trying to be not that. And it works, right? Readers, so we do reader surveys, and that's what people talk about. Like the finiteness of it, the fact that you get it once a week, then it's done. The habit where I can sit down on a Saturday morning with a cup of tea and read the newspaper and then move on with my life is so valuable and rare.
Do you get the sense that, or what sense do you get for how much of the audience is outside of Africa?
So on WhatsApp, we get dialing codes, which can tell us this, and our surveys confirm it, where one third of people are overseas. And that's mostly Canada, the United States, Germany, France, England. But then two-thirds are on the continent.
And do you think that that's kind of like a diaspora of Africa, or is it somebody
So it's
else?
a mix of diaspora because there's, again, readers talk a lot about a sense of belonging because there's very few African institutions that you can like emotionally connect to. So the content is giving that. But then a lot of people who work at organizations where they need to know what's happening in Africa because, they invest there or they have an aid organization.
And so you're sending a lot of these on a one to one basis. And obviously these are in people's phones, they're texting a lot. What kind of like interaction do you have with your audience? Like people are regularly replying to these and do you have a way of like siphoning these replies into something that's, manageable in terms of reading? Like what kind of actual like feedback do you get from the
So on
audience?
the chat platforms, yeah, we get we have a mix of responses between people who do not want to be talked to. Like we've had readers, like we'll send out a survey maybe, and people are just like, just send me my newspaper and don't ask me anything else. Like, don't get up in my business. And then people who give feedback and suggestions, give story ideas. And then a lot of people who like just want to chat about it. So we have a quiz. So people want to chat about the answers to the quiz or just talk about issues. Um, our distribution team have helped people with IT issues. When someone is like, I can't read your newspaper, what do I do? And then they have to talk them through the problem. So there's a lot of that. It's a really nice format for that because you can go one on one. And what we've done in a couple of instances when we wanted to report on a country, we'll then message people in that country on WhatsApp and say, hey, whatever's happened in your country, can you tell us where you are, what's happening? So like at the end of last year in Tanzania, there was incredible electoral violence. And we messaged people there and a dozen people responded with like, this is what's happening in my community. And then that fed into the story. So it's a really powerful tool there as well.
And do you have someone whose job it is to have a dashboard open that has all that stuff coming in, or is it all just whoever happens to have the app open that's logged in is seeing those messages
So we
come in?
have one person, Dumi, who is the human being behind. Most people think it's an AI that talks to them because that's your experience with most places as a chatbot. But he's a human being and he records these things. And like if someone says something really interesting, we'll send it to the team chat and feed in that way.
So I notice you do have like some social media accounts and stuff like that, even though like your business isn't built on driving traffic to article pages. How do you think about social media, other platforms? Do you create any other kind of content like YouTube content or podcasts or anything like that? Like what in what ways can you leverage social media to kind of spread the word about it?
So in the beginning, like let's embrace social media as a like a soft power storytelling platform and get our story out there and get people talking about us. We tried a lot of work on Twitter back then, on Twitter Spaces. In the last year, we've decided, particularly with what's happened with X, there's just no value to being in these spaces. Like you've got to do so much work to compete in the algorithm, and our product fundamentally doesn't work in that algorithm. That most platforms we've just given up on. Like we're not gonna leave them because people will clone you and pretend that you're you and do all sorts of stuff, but we're not actively posting as of now. We might, like on TikTok, start do videos just to exercise that muscle and try it out and see how our storytelling would work. But at the moment, our thing is to double down on people sharing the newspaper with other people and how we get them to do that.
And the reason you reached out to me is because I recently interviewed the founder of a publication called Communications Day that distributes through PDF. And in my interview with him, he talked about how basically by accident he created a publication that was sort of immune from AI disruption, in that his publication wasn't easily crawlable by large language model, you know, uh, uh, data centers or whatever, large language model AI companies, because it wasn't available on the open web. Do you think about that as like any sort of like competitive edge now that like the information that you're publishing can't like necessarily easily be summarized in like Gemini or something like that?
So definitely, in so many different ways, it is a huge advantage. Like, firstly, in AI, just turning it into slop, right? So news websites are dying and they're losing traffic. So people need other models. So one of our hopes is that more publications try out this way of doing journalism. But also because people increasingly want a thing that other people made and curated and put, love and enthusiasm into. So we think this moment is a huge opportunity for us, and we're the right product at the right time.
What other like models do you think you'd be open to? Like, do you like this model where you're dependent on a few large institutions, um, or do you think that there are like tasteful sponsorship advertising opportunities? Do you think that there's membership opportunities? I'm curious. Do you think there's a print opportunity? Like, I don't know how much you follow U.S. stuff, but the
Yeah.
satirical newspaper The Onion relaunched its print publication purely as a way to drive subscriptions, and now it's like one in the matter of like 2 years, it's become one of the largest like print newspapers in the United States, just because that's the main like thing that you get if you become like a paying member of it.
So physical print newspaper, yes. Well, the thing we're trying to work out is how you make print cheaper, and that part of it, are the cool, interesting things you can do. So yes, we'd love to make a newspaper. Then, in terms of business models, so philanthropy at the moment is our business model. It's all consuming, it's really hard work, especially in the current environment. It has bought us time where now, so this year we're doing our first ever in-person events and creating, because you have this engaged, connected community and you can take them to a space. So we're going to do a couple of events in Kenya and South Africa. And then we're also rolling out merchandise. And then if we can start selling art and other things for that community built around the events. So that's, again, just diversifying revenue streams. And if we could find some benevolent, nice, rich people, obviously, that helps everyone. I mean, that at the moment, that seems to be the business model that works for most publications that do exist and do news. And our community, people have actively asked us to do like a support thing or a membership model. At the moment, we don't want to do that, but we will make it easier for people to give us money. That, though, is really hard because there are people in so many different countries with so many different payment systems and recurring payments and all the headaches. And we have run adverts, like old school print, like a full page in the newspaper. We did community engagement around that, where before we ran adverts, we asked our audience if they would be okay with it. We did a subscriber poll, and people were very in favor of it, which is a data point that helps us sell advertising because it's a consent again. So that we're definitely going to do. So we'll have revenue diversification. But all of that said, the world is on fire. So, I mean, who knows? It's a wild time for journalism.
So for the events, is that like something that you think like the main readers will attend, or are you trying to do something where you can bring together titans of industry within Africa, or people who are I had on the person who runs big cabal media, tech cabal in Africa, and they have like basically trying to create their own kind of Davos or or business conferences and stuff like that. And so what do you think the opportunity is there?
Firstly, Big Cabal are amazing, like as a business. Like, kudos to them. So our one problem is we make people with power angry because of our reporting and our illustrations and everything else. So it's hard to do events where you attract those people to within our ethics and worldview. The current events, we're looking at them as a community development way. So you're a subscriber, come to the event, bring a friend, and then we grow a community through that. And sell tickets and merchandise and have advertisers and sponsors. So that's that business model. In the future, where we are sort of the paper of record, then we can start doing those kind of events where people want to be there and they want to be associated. So then you can get like a government leader or a business leader feels like they have to speak there, even though it might be not an environment that's gentle to them.
Given that you want to get in front of more kind of rich people and these large institutions, how much are you getting on a plane or speaking to these people? Like, are you going to like these big conferences, like global, think influencer conferences like the Davos's, the the Semaphores World Economic Summit, things like that? Like, are you trying to kind of expand your own personal brand or Simon's personal brand to kind of like make it so that you're kind of swimming in these circles a little bit more? How do you think about that?
So we're not at that level of Davos or those kind of things, but 5 or 6 members of our team, we try to go as many things as possible, like regional events in Europe, events in the United States, to start those kind of conversations. And we do get funding through that. And it is something, because in the beginning you're tiny, you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, but you have to make a weekly newspaper. So time is scarce. And we're now getting to the place where we can create more time for this kind of thing. And then we can, like, I need to go to whatever, San Francisco for a week. You can then go do that. So we're just there.
So when you look ahead, like 3 years from now, what do you want the publication to look like? What do you want it to be doing that's more ambitious than it's doing today?
So we want to have more publications, either global or like country level, because the model works. And especially at a country level, you can build really strong, engaged communities, and there's a business model there. And then, like I say, revenue, a third of our revenue from different sources. And starting, most importantly, building that muscle. So at the moment, and so many startups in the media have this problem where we were all journalists when we created the thing. So we don't know how to sell adverts. We don't have, even the fundraising in that isn't our core skill set. So we built it as it is. We now need to start hiring people and building these other strengths. So in 3 years' time, that's where I want us to be. Like, we know how to sell advertising because we have an advertising person. We're going to have events because we have people who live in that world.
So, like, when you say launching new publications, does that mean like launching the continent tech, the continent finance, or is it more like different regions, or like how do you think about launching more publications?
So the same format of a newspaper with a mix of stories about the world, but focus on different regions or different countries or globally, like whatever's appropriate for different markets. We're very lucky in Africa because Africans have a very real sense of there is a continent and like a shared reality of basically being screwed over. So it's harder in other regions because you have less of that sense. But at a country level, that's where we think you can do really well.
So you think there could be a future where there's like the continent Asia, the continent Europe, or something like this, the continent South America?
Yeah. And that can be other people doing it, and we work with them and help them, or we do it. It's, journalism is so much trouble. It's terrifying. It's also a huge opportunity. And there's lots of people trying to solve the problem.
Okay, Sipo, those are all the questions I had for you. Where can people find you online?
If you Google the Continent newspaper, you can find a very, very average website, which will help you subscribe to us on WhatsApp and Signal.
All right, well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much. Have a good weekend.